The restaurant thrummed with life on that electric Friday night, a symphony of clinking glasses, hearty laughter, and the low hum of conversation that filled every corner of the bustling dining room. Every table was claimed, every seat taken, and the waitstaff wove through the chaos with the precision of dancers in a choreographed frenzy. Among them was Emily, a young waitress whose eyes carried the weight of exhaustion but whose smile never faltered, a beacon of warmth amid the storm. She wasn't just balancing trays of steaming plates and frosted drinks, she was carrying the burden of her younger brother's mounting medical bills, working double shifts to keep hope alive for his recovery. Each step she took, each order she delivered, was fueled by a quiet determination that no one in the crowded room could see. At a corner table, Ethan Rhodes held court, his presence impossible to ignore. The millionaire's tailored suit gleamed under the soft glow of the chandeliers, and his entourage hung on his every word, their laughter louder than the rest of the room combined. Ethan was a local legend, a man whose name was whispered in awe and irritation in equal measure. His generosity was as famous as his arrogance. He'd tip extravagantly one moment and mock the staff the next, his words sharp enough to cut. Spotting Emily weaving through the tables, he raised a hand, his voice slicing through the din. "Hey, waitress," he called, a smirk curling his lips. "You look like you're carrying the world on that tray. Can you even crack a smile?" His friends erupted in laughter, their eyes glinting with amusement. Emily's jaw tightened, but she flashed a polite grin, the kind she'd perfected after years of dealing with worse. She approached his table, setting down a fresh round of drinks with practiced ease. Ethan leaned back in his chair, sipping his whiskey, his gaze appraising her like she was part of the evening's entertainment. "Tell you what," he said, his voice dripping with challenge. "There's a live band tonight. I dare you to get up on that stage and dance. Do it, and I'll leave you $100 tip. Back out, and, well, maybe you're just not brave enough." His entourage chuckled, leaning forward, eager to see her squirm. The air around the table felt thick with expectation, their eyes locked on her, waiting for embarrassment to swallow her whole. But Emily didn't flinch. She set her tray down on a nearby stand, her movements deliberate. Something flickered in her eyes, a spark, a defiance that Ethan hadn't anticipated. "Fine," she said, her voice soft but steady, cutting through the noise like a blade. "But don't think I'm doing this for your amusement." The words hung in the air, and before anyone could react, she turned and walked toward the stage, her steps purposeful, her shoulders squared. The band, a lively quartet tucked in the corner, paused mid-song, their instruments falling silent as Emily approached. The lead guitarist raised an eyebrow, but a quick nod from her was all it took. They shifted gears, launching into an upbeat tune with a driving rhythm that pulsed through the room. Emily stood at the edge of the stage, the spotlight catching the faint sheen of sweat on her brow. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over her, drowning out the chatter, the clinking glasses, the weight of the night. Then, she moved. Her first steps were cautious, testing the rhythm, but within seconds, something shifted. Her movements became fluid, graceful, alive with a joy that seemed to radiate from her core. She twirled, her dark hair catching the light like a halo, her arms sweeping through the air with an elegance that silenced the crowd. The restaurant, once a cacophony of noise, fell into a hush, every eye drawn to the waitress who had transformed into something extraordinary. What had started as a cruel dare morphed into a performance that held the room captive. Her feet glided across the stage, her body swaying in perfect sync with the music, each motion a testament to a passion she'd buried under the weight of her responsibilities. Ethan's smirk faded, his glass frozen halfway to his lips. He had expected awkwardness, a clumsy attempt to save face, but what he got was raw, unfiltered talent, a courage that burned brighter than his wealth or status. The crowd erupted in applause as Emily finished, her chest heaving, her face flushed with a mix of exhilaration and shyness. She offered a small, almost reluctant bow and hurried off the stage, her heart pounding as she slipped back into the rhythm of her work. As she passed Ethan's table, she paused, her eyes meeting his. "You don't need to dare people to prove their worth," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Sometimes, all they need is a chance." The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through Ethan's carefully curated confidence. For the first time in years, he was speechless, his usual quick wit buried under the weight of her truth. Later that night, as the restaurant began to empty and the band played its final notes, Ethan slipped away from his friends. He found Emily in the back, stacking plates in the dim light of the kitchen, her hands moving with the same quiet efficiency she'd shown all night. He cleared his throat, and she looked up, startled. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice low, stripped of its usual bravado. "You were incredible up there, and I was wrong to make fun of you." Emily shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. "I didn't do it for you," she said simply. "I did it for me. And for my brother. He always tells me not to hide what I love." Her words were matter of fact, but they carried a weight that made Ethan pause. For once, he didn't see her as just a waitress. He saw someone braver than he'd ever been, someone who danced not for applause but for the sheer joy of it, for the brother she fought for every day. The following week, an envelope arrived at Emily's small apartment, tucked between bills and junk mail. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a check, not for the promised $100, but for $10,000. A note was clipped to it, written in neat, deliberate script, "For your brother's care and for your courage. Thank you for reminding me what real strength looks like." Emily's eyes welled with tears as she clutched the letter, not because of the money, though it would ease her burden, but because someone had finally seen her, not as a servant, not as a shadow moving through the restaurant, but as a person with dreams and fire and unbreakable resolve. Word of the night spread, as stories do, and soon it was more than just a moment in a restaurant. It became a tale shared across the town, whispered in coffee shops and retold on platforms like MidnightTales, the YouTube channel where stories of human triumph found a home. Viewers of MidnightTales, drawn to its tales of courage and redemption, ate up the story of the waitress who danced her way into a millionaire's conscience. They left comments praising Emily's grace, her strength, and the quiet power of her defiance. The channel's host, voice warm and earnest, narrated the story with a reverence that made it feel universal, a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary moments could unfold. Ethan, too, was changed. His friends noticed it first, the way his laughter wasn't as sharp, his comments less cutting. He still came to the restaurant, still sat at his corner table, but the arrogance that had once defined him was tempered, softened by the memory of a waitress who had humbled him with a dance. He started listening more, watching the people around him, seeing the stories in their eyes rather than dismissing them as background noise. He even subscribed to MidnightTales, drawn to its stories of everyday heroes, each one a quiet echo of the lesson Emily had taught him. Emily, meanwhile, continued her work at the restaurant, carrying plates with that same unwavering smile. The weight of her brother's bills was lighter now, thanks to Ethan's check, but she didn't change who she was. She still moved through the dining room with quiet grace, still took the late shifts, still poured her heart into every step. But when the band played, something was different. Sometimes, she'd pause, set down her tray, and step onto the stage. Not for tips, not for dares, but because she knew now that her passion could light up a room. She danced for herself, for her brother, for the joy that had always been there, waiting to be set free. The story of that night lingered, a spark that refused to fade. It wasn't just about a dare or a dance, it was about courage in the face of judgment, about kindness that could shift the hardest hearts. On MidnightTales, the video racked up views, each click a testament to the power of Emily's moment. Comments poured in, calling her an inspiration, a reminder that strength wasn't in wealth or status but in the quiet acts of defiance that shone brighter than any spotlight. Ethan, watching the video late one night, felt a pang of gratitude for the waitress who had shown him what it meant to be truly brave. In the end, it was a simple truth that stayed with everyone who heard the story, whether in the restaurant, on Midnight Tales, or beyond. Sometimes, the smallest acts of courage could outshine the grandest displays of power. Emily's dance, born from a dare, had become a beacon, a reminder that true strength lay not in arrogance or wealth but in the humility to be yourself, the daring to embrace what you love, and the kindness to see the worth in others. And so, Emily danced on, not for applause or recognition, but because she knew that even in the most unexpected moments, courage and heart could steal the spotlight and change the world.